off, Shecky, I'm going to give you the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt. I really appreciate that. This has been an interesting week because it's kind of a topic that hits home for me. And today we're going to learn about really the difference between an entrepreneur and a term called Wantrepreneur, which is something that has been tossed around internet marketing circles for a while. And there's some really, really key differences, and I've had a lot of years. I mean, most of you guys a lot of you guys don't know me, but I've pretty much been self-employed my whole life. So I've had many years of being an entrepreneur, but it's very, very easy, especially with the way things are structured online and all the pitches that go online, to get caught into this wantrepreneur mindset, to get put into a situation where you think, oh, I want this, I want that. And you start getting this like shiny object syndrome, and you really start losing sight of the things that are extremely important and what really, like, deep down in your gut, what makes for really an entrepreneur. And so it's not just skill sets, and it's not just, how-tos, but it's also a feeling and an energy that you put out. So, thankfully, Kurt, I have you to remind me regularly and kind of help keep me on task. And I really, really appreciate that. But I want to tell everybody that's on this blab that it's important for you to pay attention, because as we go through some of these nuances, you really want to do a self-check on yourself, not just now, but every once in a while. So just make sure that your mindset is in the right place, because it's very, very easy to sort of slip off of that pedestal that you need to be standing on in order to truly be an entrepreneur. So before I, kind of hand it back over to Kurt, I really want to just, make sure you guys understand that you're going to get some, really good insights. We're going to talk about really the first keystone. Last week we talked about there are 4 keystones to the big idea. And today we're really going to cover the first keystone of the big idea. And you're going to need to ask yourself some questions about whether you truly have this nailed when we go over that. And it's certainly okay if you don't, but it should be clear to you where opportunities lie. So stay tuned, because you're going to get invited to a special breakout session that Kurt alluded to. And Kurt and I are going to be doing this Wednesday that is specific to this conversation. So anyway, Kurt, I'm just excited. I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to this conversation. So just take it away.
One of the things is okay, great. Nick has all that. Great. So just to let you know, is Shecky, Nick's communicating with me through text. I probably have to reboot my computer for Skype to come up. Obviously, I'm not going to do that now, but just an FYI to communicate. So Shecky and I, everything, by the way, that we're doing and teaching and talking about, we're documenting, and we'll give you access to. So if you're in part of our Social Media Ad Genius family, you're always going to get access to all these documents and templates and everything else. So we actually have a process of how Shecky the introductions and kind of the insights we go over. And one of the notes that I have here is we got to make sure that we go over 2 stories, right? We want to tell 2 stories. And it's funny, Shecky, like being in the difference, in my opinion, from all the entrepreneurs we worked with, all the clients that I've been a part with, some, inside of our masterminds, the difference between a wantrepreneur and an entrepreneur is really a finite line. And it doesn't have anything to do with confidence. It doesn't have anything to do with skills, in my opinion. It's really knowing your numbers. Shecky and I talk to a lot of people, and one of the things that I asked Shecky to do as head of training coordinator is I know that our information will change lives. Like, I've seen people do it before. Like, I'm that passionate about our product and our services. You should be about your services as well. Not selling your product, service, or message is a disjustice to the world if you have something great to share that that can help people. So I have no problem selling when I'm talking about our family membership or Social Media Ad Genius, because I've had hundreds of testimonials. And in my opinion, that's the business you want to be in, is something that you're so dang confident about. If someone questions you on it or doesn't think that you can do it, that's fine if they don't believe, but you've seen the proof that other people can do it, right? We're just super passionate at it. And what's interesting is we see that people who treat their business like a hobby and not like an actual business. Shecky and I say that all the time, is is we'll use that. I don't want to say it's a line because it's the fact. Is we tell people, look, when do you want to have predictable income? I don't know. I'm trying this. I'm trying that. Okay. Instead of this try thing, when are we going to move from the state of mind of having this not be a hobby, not that it's just part-time, but really developing a marketing plan? So Shecky, here I'm supposed to tell two stories, and there's two unique stories that I have, but it's funny as being an entrepreneur that like as I travel and I meet with people or go through life, Shecky, I'm sure you see the same thing as well. You know how you're thinking about something like me, I've been thinking about how are we going to scale our business in 2016. I'm also thinking about this week's blog topic. And all of a sudden, all my friends start having conversations around the things that I'm thinking about. Have you ever noticed this at all? Right?
Yeah, it's the energy that you're putting out.
That's exactly what it is. So you and I have a process where we talk to new family members and students, right? Yes. We say, hey, look, let's just be clear. There's this whole way that we've established what we're calling the social media ad genius profit factory, where we can establish and quantify, is your marketing working or not? That's it. Is it working or not? And we have these easy processes that we can go over and we say, look, as long as you have these four, what we call keystones, as long as you have these four keystones in place, pretty much the whole profit factory is going to work, right? Now, we talked about this a little bit this week, and this is why we're recording all this, but basically what they are is, do you have a product, service, message, or idea that you want to monetize, right? Do you know your perfect avatar? And from that, what are the 12 different steps in the profit factory that we want to make sure we identify that you're doing correctly? And then what's the proof, right? How do we make sure that the numbers are working? How is it proof? And really, if we have these four things, this is why we're training on it every week. Like we're talking about this week, we're talking about product, service, idea, message, right? So Shecky, here's the story behind this. Everything happens for a reason, right? You hear me say this all the time. So you and I have this process of anytime we talk to a new family member, we say, hey, look, here are the four keystones. Do you have this in place? So I named the very first one, our subject today. And I'm talking to this individual who's in the health and wellness space. And I go, so do you have a product, service, or idea that you want to be able to monetize? And they're like, Kurt, hang on. I got a lot of ideas here. And I go, it's great. What's the very first, let's focus on one. What's the very first thing you'd like to sell? And he's like, well, here's his exact language. And you guys will learn from me, language makes people very predictable because people operate in patterns, right? So what he's saying is what he's thinking as well too. You'll catch on to this. Shecky, I know you're going to smile as I go through this. Shecky, I want you to role play with me, and I want to talk about the importance of the product, service, message. So if you're going through this, you explain, hey, we're going to go through these four pillars to make sure you have these things. Would you mind start with that first question? I want to role play with you. I want to tell you what this other guy told me. Very first question would be, sorry, I'm kind of setting you up for this one.
Do you have a viable product, service, idea, and message?
Absolutely. Now, here's the thing. Shecky, I got a lot of ideas. I'm really interested in health. I'm interested in wellness. I'm interested in mindset. Now, I've seen people that have videos on YouTube. I see people that have some stuff on Twitter. Now, I'm thinking about growing on Instagram. Now, the other thing is what I really see, and I know you've helped people in health and wellness. See, what I'm looking for is I'm looking to really grow this. Like, I really want to grow this big. What I want to be able to do is I want to sell them this health and wellness. I want you guys to help me figure it out. Now, if you guys can help me figure this out, I can market this because this could be really big.
Yeah.
So specifically, what have I told you?
Absolutely nothing.
So here's the next question I ask the guy. I go, hey, not a problem. I understand. This is like a 10-second question, right? So if I'm already having this many problems, I'm like, okay, look. Specifically, what would you like to sell? Remember, you guys, I always use the word specifically because a lot of people talk in emotions. I go, specifically, what are you looking to sell? Like, what value do you want to serve to the world? And he goes, Kurt, I know, you know what you're asking me for? You're asking me for a marketing plan. And I don't have a marketing plan. You know what I've learned as being an entrepreneur, which I hear in the back of my head saying, wantrepreneur. He goes, you know what, Kurt? I don't make a plan. The reason is I don't make a plan because I found in business that plans change. And when plans change, you don't really need to have a plan up front because it's going to change anyway. Do you know what I mean? Nope. I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, well, because see, I didn't really write this. The whole point is we weren't even getting to talk about marketing. We weren't even talking about Facebook. We weren't even talking about landing pages or traffic. He couldn't get out of his head on what he wanted to monetize. And what we see is we see people who don't get out of their head. The difference between being a wantrepreneur and an entrepreneur, in my opinion, is not education. In my opinion, it's not a set of circumstances because I started this business with no money, no credit. Shecky, I know you started businesses with no money, no credit. Yes. It's literally taking one step forward. And Shecky hears me say this all the time. Let's try something and screw it up. because if it doesn't work, at least we're doing something by fixing it. And as an entrepreneur, please write this word down because this is important. And Shecky, we should have this for our breakout session. Is one of the things when I get stuck as being an entrepreneur is I ask myself the question, how can I be resourceful to solve this problem? There is a psychology, there's a mind trick behind this whole thing. But when you say, how can I be resourceful? How can I be resourceful? How can I be resourceful? Many times the idea will pop into your head on what to do. And what I consider wantrepreneur versus entrepreneurship is taking one step forward, one right after the other, and just not stopping. And I'll tell you, the backbone of our business is Nick takes care of a lot of the technical stuff on our side. But let's be completely honest. We've learned a lot of this business through Google and YouTube. Just because there was a problem we couldn't fix. Someone else has had that problem in the world. And that's really how we started to service clients. And what we found out is that clients knew that we had the answers. But a lot of the answers originally came from YouTube and some other, and Google, just as we were starting to figure out our products and services and message. So I think one of the things, Shecky, that's really important is for people to really clarify three important distinctions. And I know that you and I have talked about this before, and then I'll go into one of my other stories. But and then I see the questions that we have over here. But like, for instance, we have an online product called Social Media Ad Genius where we show people how to advertise on Facebook. It's a product and not a business. My entire business is not around just the one thing that we sell. So Shecky, you and I talked about this. I think it's a great subject. Shecky, when's the last time you walked into Walmart, Walgreens, Target, or any major retailer store and they had one item on the shelf?
Never.
How many entrepreneurs do you talk to that have a product for one idea, but no other ways to monetize that idea?
Well, it happens a lot. And I think that it doesn't mean that they couldn't add more things. I think that sometimes it's like they can't see the forest for the trees. And honestly, it's okay. I know that we're speaking kind of negatively about having one product, but the good news to that is it's still better than the story that you told at the top of the call, where you're talking about the guy that's just like, he's got all these great ideas and hasn't figured out how to put anything into it. At the very least, having a product, service, idea, or message, that's the first keystone, the first foundational element to the big idea, right? So at least if you got that, you've got a good starting point. You've got one of the four keystones. So it's a good starting point. Now, yes, there's lots more other things to do, but I'm kind of putting a positive spin on your negative.
Well, okay? Here's one thing, and this is why we do the blabs, right? We talk about concept and we go into the training on the breakout session that we have on Wednesday.
Right.
Which I'll give you guys that link here towards the end. But let's just to be fair, Shecky. So couple of ways, and I don't want to turn this, I like your language around this. I don't want to be negative around it, but this is going to be really, really good. So for example, when people have just one product, what I see so many times, and the reason that I really came up with this whole idea of this Social Media Ad Genius Profit Factory is so many people will say, I have $1 million idea. Shecky, when someone says, hey, Kurt, I have $1 million idea, my next question to them is what?
Let's see. Let's test it. Have you tried it? Have you tested it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's funny is remember, you guys, please write this down. I learned this from someone a while back ago. This is so important. Your product, right? Write this down. Your product and your marketing. This is going to sound so common sense, but so brilliant. Shecky's heard me say this a lot of times. Your product and your marketing. Okay? Your marketing sells your product. Your product keeps people from refunding. So many people feel that they have the world's best product. If only someone was to see it, it's the world's best product. It's going to be huge. And they spend a lot of their time making this amazing. No one ever knows how amazing it is until they swipe their credit card. They have no idea. So making the product absolutely perfect before you go to market is one of the biggest disservices that you can do. And this is one of the other stories I wanted to get into with Danny Iney, which we will hear in just a second. But you want to be able, if you have that $1 million idea, in my opinion, one of the best things that you can do as an entrepreneur right now in today's day and age is to know how to run a small marketing test to allow people to vote with their dollars or engagement to see if your product is going to be wildly successful. Don't spend a lot of time or months, or Shecky, you and I have seen people work years on a product they've never sold one of, and they don't even know if it's going to work, but they invested like 3 years. I know people that have invested thousands, some people hundreds of thousands of dollars into an idea that had never been tested. So,
yeah, I mean, I've admittedly have some guilt and shame around that subject.
well, I mean,
not to the extent that you're describing, but admittedly, even as an entrepreneur and coming from the offline world, I've done stuff and put things into niches that I thought, oh man, this is just going to be great, and really put too much time and effort into something that was untested. And then when you finally get into the testing and things like that, it's like, oh, well, maybe it's not doing that well, and maybe this is not the $1 million idea. And then, you start getting emotionally attached to stuff. Like the more time you spend on something, the more emotionally attached you get to it too. Oh. And then the more you kind of go like, oh, well, I gotta really make this work now because I'm freaking married to it, And I think, you bring up a really, really great point. Is really just, the word really is viability. And, can you indeed, say, okay, look, I've got a product, service, idea, or message. That's great. I mean, get to that point where you're clear on what that is, but then let's figure out if it's viable before you get married to it. It's good to be excited about it, but let's date for a little bit first before we get married.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So here's the way that I want to take a look at it. What I want to be able to do is train on our subject matter, right? Have an open discussion about it. But I really like to, I don't know why more business owners don't do this. I felt we grow very fast from doing this. I like to pull back what we call the velvet rope or the curtains or whatever, and just tell you what we're doing with our business, for example, right? So my number one motto, I say all the time in our business and in with clients, right? I want to make sure that we have long-term, scalable, predictable income. Long-term. Like making 10 grand in a day is awesome. Making 100 grand in a month is awesome. Someone who comes up to me and says, hey, Kurt, I've consistently been making 30 grand a month over the last 3 years consistently. That is amazing. That's stuff that you can predict and build a lifestyle on.
That's my hero.
It really is, right?
And there's so few people that do that too.
And then share how they do it,
right?
So one of the things that I want to give you, and Shecky's heard this story before, and Shecky, by the way, a good mutual friend, David Gonzalez, from the Internet Marketing Party, came over and stopped over this morning. And it was right before either I go on a morning walk or bike ride in your same neighborhood as well too, right? And it really helps me get focused for the day. And I go, hey, David, will you go on a walk with me? He goes, what do you mean? And I go, I just want to talk about my day for the next 45 minutes, get some cardio in, really taking this beautiful city of Austin. And we started talking about business. And I go, oh, Pepper's heard this story lots of different times. And I go, oh, so it's he was telling me about this person in his life. And I go, oh, you're not able to give advice because of Gandhi and sugar, right? And David goes, I don't know the Gandhi and sugar story. So I'm going to tell you the story very quickly. Please remember this. And everything that I teach you and going forward that I talk about, think of me as the Gandhi and sugar answer, because that's anything that I say is I'm doing as well too. I never want to be the hypocrite. So here's the story. Very short. Girl waits in line. She has an overweight son. Son has some, it's not going well. She waits in line for hours as the story goes. She waits and waits and waits, and she finally gets to Gandhi, and she goes, Gandhi, 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 my son here is overweight. He's unhealthy. Please, 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 please help us. And Gandhi looks at them both and says, come back tomorrow. And then the mother looks at Gandhi and says, but Gandhi, I've waited in line for hours. And he goes, please come back tomorrow. So she huffs and puffs and she leaves. And she waits in line. She comes back the next day and waits twice as long. Waits. Finally gets to Gandhi and says, Gandhi, I've waited for hours and hours and hours. How can I help my son that's overweight and just like, what can I do? And Gandhi goes, don't feed your child sugar. And the mother gets upset. And she's like, feed my son sugar. What do you mean? Like, I waited in line yesterday. I was here yesterday. I waited for hours. Why did you not tell me yesterday? He goes, because yesterday I ate sugar. So the moral of the story is, don't give out advice unless you're actually doing it. And that's the reason I like to hold a lot of these blabs. I like to show people what we are doing, what our other clients are doing. Remember, all the advice that I'm giving you is exactly because either I'm not taking sugar, right? Or we're doing exactly what we're teaching. So what happens is what we have really found out that our customers are the best people to tell us exactly what they would like to buy, not what we think that they want to buy. So let me give you an example. Inside Social Media Ad Genius, we talk about Facebook marketing. Now, Facebook marketing applies to lots of different businesses, but Facebook is only one platform of lots of platforms out there. There's Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. Well, some of my friends are great world-renowned experts at LinkedIn. I'm not a world-renowned expert, but I know how to run some ads. But I know these people could be interested in LinkedIn ads, could maybe also be interested in Facebook ads. So what we do for long-term, scalable, predictable income, we try to figure out, okay, who's our perfect avatar, right? Who's our perfect customer? And we figure out, okay, they're probably, I'll tell you, 35 to 55-year-old entrepreneur business owner that either could be self-entrepreneur or could have fewer than 15 employees. Now, above 15 employees, great. We can absolutely work with them as well, but that's really kind of our sweet spot. Now, if we start taking a look at long-term, scalable, predictable income, and we really look at our avatar, which we're going to be talking about more next week, is just if they don't buy our Facebook product, doesn't mean, this is important to write down, it doesn't mean that they said no forever. They're interested in some kind of social media marketing. They're just not interested in that one offer. So why we talk about extended products and services, as we got into, like Shecky was saying, is I don't want to bash on or kind of play down people who only have one product. It's like, hey, look, if I'm only looking for people who are going to market and who want to learn about Facebook, this isn't a full-time, this isn't a business. This is hey, I have a product for Social Media Ad Genius. But if we start talking about funnels, we start talking about other ad platforms, I can have long-term, scalable, predictable income because I'm opening up my audience. And just because they said no now doesn't mean no forever. For one of our other products, services, recommendations, to have people on our marketing list and to follow up. So it's critical. We will be talking as part of the Social Media Ad Genius Profit Factory about having additional products and services. Just remember, if you have one product or an idea, let's figure out how to monetize it and keep that funnel wide, keep that avatar wide, so we have a long-term scalable business and just not a niche business that we're going to try to sell one thing, not follow up, and that lead, energy, and ads go to waste. Shecky, does that make sense? Or do you have any comments with that? Because you and I talk about this all the time.
No, I mean, it totally makes sense to me. I think you're spot on.
So good. The other thing is, one of the stories that I said that I was going to put in here is everything happens for a reason. A friend of mine sits down next to me on a plane, happened just a week and a half ago. This guy's going to do about 7 million online this year. Brilliant. Great friend. I've known him over the last 4 years, been watching him do this the entire time, right? So watching somebody get that kind of success, it's awesome. And he told me, he said, Kurt, my e-commerce business is absolutely amazing. But I'll tell you, my e-commerce business has margins of like 10 to 20%, which isn't bad. He goes, but my digital business, some of my training can have margins up to 60 to 70%. He goes, so when I start to scale my business, I want to help more people in e-commerce learn how to have e-commerce stores. He goes, my e-commerce stores, I don't make a lot of margin on, but it's a long-term business that I can sell. However, when we are getting, when he's running the coaching business, it's not something that he's going to be able to sell because it's his brand and his name, but it provides cash to finance all the e-commerce businesses that he's running. So when he sells them out someday, then he's completely done. He's out. The more reason I tell you that story is because his funnel is wide. He knows who his avatar is, but he knows even if they say no once to one of his products or trainings, that's okay. That doesn't mean they say no forever. And what he's learning along the way of creating his e-commerce, what he's learning along the way, he's able to share and teach with others, because a lot of people, just like why you guys are here, they don't want to have to go through the entire process of learning everything on their own. They want to talk to somebody who's already done it, already been through it. And that's really why he offers, which is interesting, he offers some of the coaching and group coaching, because he gets ideas from his students and it works vice versa. So the digital product business funds the physical business he's going to sell off one day. But that is someone who's really focused on who their avatar is and knowing, hey, I got an idea for a product, service, or message. Now here's how we're going to monetize it over and over. So one of the other ones is a good friend of mine, Danny Inney. Some of you guys will know Danny Inney, who may be on this call. He has a course called Course Builders Laboratory. Now, here's what Danny's great at. Danny's a personal friend. He's a client, great individual. If you're inside social media, Ad Genius, inside of our family, you'll see a Genius expert link for him that we're going to put up there as well, too. But Danny, 4 years ago, was $150,000 in debt. And what Danny did is he created an educational online course that showed people just a couple of small little steps that he was able to monetize. And now what he's been able to do is from that course and that marketing course that he's built, he now started training other people how to do courses. And now what he's able to do is he's opened up his product, service, and idea, basically his idea funnel from his big idea. And there are multiple different products and services that he now sells. But he went from having one idea and one marketing business to something where he's growing the funnel and organically has found out, oh, my customers want group support. My customers want more handheld support. My customers want a 12-week step-by-step process. Now, Danny, in the last 4 years, has turned his business into $3.5 million, which I know that he'll do this year, and he said publicly, so I can say that. But that's the difference between the product, service, and idea and message, and not really knowing how to monetize it, to recognizing here's a way that I can really serve the world with a need and how I can monetize. And then, of course, we start going through some of the other pillars as well, too. So, I mean, Shecky, we spent 39 minutes on this. There's actually, you have a couple of questions in here, but is there anything that you feel that I'm leaving out, Shecky, as I kind of go through the story with Danny or how it relates here?
No, I think the crux of this conversation is, again, just the viability of the product, service, idea, or message. And, really the gut check about whether you're truly being an entrepreneur or a wantrepreneur. And there's an interrelationship between those two ideas. You've given some really good stories and examples. I love the Gandhi story. I've always loved that story. And it's really just a lot about, leading by example. But I'm kind of curious about the people that are on this blab and, really what some of their feelings are in regards to this topic. So, like, if you don't mind, I kind of want to put this question out to everybody is, what is your opinion, as the difference between an entrepreneur and a wantrepreneur? I mean, if anybody wants to weigh in and just type something into the chat.
Go ahead, comment on the right-hand side of your screen. Just put in a comment, what's the difference between a wantrepreneur and an entrepreneur? I'm really just curious of a lot of people's thoughts. What Shecky and I have really found out over the years from working with lots of students from all over the world, a lot of the times it's not for lack of information, it's lack for misunderstanding or judgment. Now, what's really interesting, Shecky, is every single morning, as I mentioned before, is I go for a walk, and a lot of times I'll listen to like motivational videos from like YouTube, and the reason I do that is I'm listening to the language, the insight, and of course I'm listening to the message as well. And one of the things, I believe it was an old recording of Napoleon Hill, and he talks about that we typically, when we become overwhelmed, it's our relationship with our feelings around events, meaning the events themselves cannot cause an overwhelm. But the stories that we tell ourselves in our head related to those events all becomes for the part of overwhelm. So what we found is a lot of people are like, I have an idea. I have no idea where to start. This is why we're doing the Profit Factory, right? This is why we're going step by step through the Profit Factory. Now, just because you may feel overwhelmed, we're going to show you some of those step-by-step processes. But sometimes one of the best things that you can do as an entrepreneur, you can watch so many great entrepreneurs, like Richard Branson does the same thing as well, too. If you have an idea, test it out in your market. Just see if your people are interested. One of the best ways to grow that is, and I know we'll talk about this more next week, but is growing your list and your funnel, widening your funnel. So if you know the product solutions that you're going to offer, right, it's typically not just one. But we're going to really focus on who that avatar is, and the wider we can start to target, the more that we're going to have long-term, predictable, scalable income. So really, in my opinion, in my classification, I know we have some comments over on the right-hand side as well, too. But Shecky, the difference between a wantrepreneur and an entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to have a solid plan, because I don't have tons of written solid plans But what we do is we have some ideas, we start to test them, and we start to run them consistently. And I think the big difference between a wantrepreneur and an entrepreneur is the person who stands there and says, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? How's this going to work? Has to be perfect. I don't know if I can do this." And I think an entrepreneur is like, "Let's just figure this out. I know it's going to work out. I just don't know how all the pieces are going to work together, but I'm going to keep moving forward until I fit together." Jackie, thoughts?
Well, it's a great segue into, what we're doing over the next, 12, 15, 18 weeks too, because honestly, Kurt and I, we've worked pretty hard on this too, is to identify and quantify and benchmark really every little piece, every little step of the way, right? So for anybody that's on this blab session, if you really want all the steps to being an online entrepreneur, then follow us for the next, I don't know, by the time we get done with bringing in some of the other experts that we do business with, I would guess and say we're probably looking at something like the next 20 weeks or so.
Oh yeah,
we're going to be rocking it. We're going to be blowing your mind. So don't be, I guess, dissuaded by the fact that we're only really talking about entrepreneurial concepts today, and we've really only focused on, product, service, idea, and message. That's just this week. It's a foundation, right? So the cool thing about what we're laying out is that there's really, unless you do bring this upon yourself, there's no opportunity for overwhelm, right? It's like, okay, I got this in place. What's the next foundation? Cool. I got that in place. What's the next foundation, right? And then when we get into number 3, which is really the meat of it all, we're going to go through actually a 17-step process that we've identified that will bring you through your entire profit factory. Some people call it a sales funnel, whatever. We're calling, our code name for it is the profit factory, the SMAG profit factory. But you're going to learn every little part and component of what a successful online operation looks like from start to finish.
Yeah, and basically, just to be clear, is like, we've spent $6-7 million in Facebook ads at this point, tons of stuff on Google, worked with a lot of celebrities, reality, TV stars, people who are doing 6, 7, 8 figures in business. Like, we've seen all these funnels. So we just boil everything down, and we're like, everybody follows these same 12 steps, right? And then I'll add in the other 4 for the keystones. Everyone uses this, right? But Shecky, it's great for your language that I hear you go around this. And then, by the way, I want to recognize that I see IT Pros Biz. It's their first blab they'd ever been on. And this is brilliantly stated, because you asked the difference between the entrepreneur and wantrepreneur. I feel an entrepreneur is someone who takes action, innovates, and builds value. To me, a wantrepreneur seems to have a lot of ideas, dreams, but never seems to push it to make it happen. Brilliant. Like, I remember being at a party with this girl that I was dating at the time. And this guy comes up to me. He's like, "Kurt, I'm going to be selling UT, University of Texas, UT t-shirts. See, you can get the labeling rights if you do blah, 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 blah. Look what I can do." And I go, "Man, that's brilliant. Like, I'm just curious because I love the entrepreneurial story. Like, where do you get, I would never do this, but like, where do you get t-shirts like that? Like, how do you figure out the wholesale volume? Like, do you have to order like 100 to get a big discount? Do you have to give like X amount to the school? Like, it just sounds like a lot of moving parts. Like, I'm just curious, like, how does that work?" And he's like, "Oh, no. I just had the idea for a couple of years." And I go, "Well, it's cool. Like if you had the idea, like, what have you done?" And he's like, "Well, and then he was like offended because I asked him what else he had done with it. And then that was where I'm like, oh man, we don't have anything in common, because he likes to dream big, which is great. But Shecky, you'll hear me say this over and over. Ashley hears me say it on the phone every single day. Oh my God, I can't believe we get to live this life that we do. We get to create whatever that we want. All we have to do is try and quantify the results. So amazing where people are like, I got this amazing idea that my life's going to be better, but oh my goodness, I am scared to even try or implement.
Yeah, so. and I think you bring up a good point too, because I've seen this happen too. And the reason that guy got offended is because you called him on his stuff, right?
Called him on his shit.
Like, yeah, And so I would tell everybody on this call too, it's like, look, if anything happened today where you identified that maybe we called you on your shit, right? Don't take it personally, right? Look at it as an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity to just do some self-reflection and say, okay, cool. I may have screwed up before now, but what can I do to move forward?
Well, and check it. Actually, that leads right into, I know you wrote down a couple of questions here, which leads right into your second question. Do you mind reading that right here? Because what I see through coaching, through working, even with clients that are at the 7 and 8 figure level, they go through this as well too. So Shecky, what is that question number 2?
The question, yes, it's a very good segue, and I wasn't even planning it that way, but what do you feel is holding you back from success? Like,
yeah, let's go ahead and type it in the right. By the way,
everybody's got, and there's no right or wrong answer, but,
no judgment.
But look, I've made a lot of excuses in my life. Kurt's heard probably half of them. But it's, we all have our own unique way of holding ourselves back, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason we ask you to type it down is sometimes seeing it in print and just kind of helps you to come clean and just go, okay, like I'm human. I'm not any different than anybody else. I mean, like, okay, I've made some dumb mistakes. I've held myself back, and and I see Justin. I know Justin. Justin has been part of our class. Just saying myself. Thank you, Justin, for being here. And I would kind of push you, like, what is it about yourself that holds you back? And I mean, to an extent, it's all of ourselves holding ourselves back. But what specifically is it, right?
It's just
because I'm using your word, Kurt, specifically.
Specifically, Phil over here is like, Phil cool Carl, I like that. I take too many vacations. I love it. What's interesting is it's funny because I just went to this event in Florida. I sat down with a guy who had done really well in real estate and then had an online business where he did really well in. And I'm like, what have you been up to? He's like, man, I haven't done really much in the last couple of years. Now, that sentence to me means two different things. Either like you've been kind of lazy because you're sitting on some money, or you're just getting started. Whatever. It's completely cool. And I go, what do you mean you haven't done anything much for the last couple of years? And he's like, well, I just built a 9,000 square foot house. That took me 3 years. And I've just kind of been sitting around looking for the next thing to do. I'd sold 3 other businesses. And I'm like, these are the entrepreneurs I want to talk to, right? Someone who started a business, failed, started, maybe had a business, sold a business. It's great. But really what it comes down to is people's risk tolerance and failure. Like, I think, Shecky, you and I know this, unfortunately, in the very wrong ways. But like real estate, there is no bottom floor of real estate. Like, you can keep digging a hole and digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's a whole other animal. Digital products, for a lot of the stuff you do online, you can track all your marketing efforts. You can figure out where the predictable streams are. So if you really know what your product, service, and message is, and we're targeting to the right people, not just, super laser targeted, but we're able to get a larger scope of people, that's where we can have predictable, scalable income because we know the right type of people we're looking for. Now we have products and services to relate to those people to really provide great services. And what's really interesting is what I find is it's not a lack of money. It's not a lack of education, but a lot of people have this fear around, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it right. Nobody gives a shit if you do it right, by the way. Even when they screw up, I will misspell things, I'll post things that are wrong, and I apologize, but I focus on production more than I focus on perfection. And our audience loves us for it. Like they know that sometimes, unfortunately, I'm a little bit late to a call, or they know that I'll misspell an email. It doesn't mean I disrespect them, but I'm very open and I say, hey, I'm sorry. But it doesn't have to be perfect where I don't send that email, or it has to be perfect where I'm completely stressed out before I get to that call because I'm 2 minutes late. Doesn't matter. People just want to get to know who you are, and then it builds trust for your product, services, and recommendations.
So I want to address just 2 things because there's some people typing in some good answers. So Justin, thanks, Justin, by the way, for taking me up on me prodding you a little bit further, because Justin said he's some bad repeated habits, procrastination, and fear. And I'm not often one to give advice, but I will tell you and anybody else on this call is that the easiest way to get over that stuff is draw down deeper into yourself and figure out what your sense of mission is. So when you go out and put Kurt, I will say, does drive me crazy with his mistakes. And we laugh and joke and talk about this all the time, okay? But one thing I will say about Kurt, which is great, is he's got this very, very strong, I'm going to compliment you, Kurt. I know I don't do that often when it's being recorded, but
it's good.
You've got a good, strong sense of mission and really this heart where you want to help all these entrepreneurs really to have a better life and have a more successful business. So Justin, when you go out there in the world, just define exactly what is it that you're trying to do? Who are you trying to help, right? And when you start your day and say, okay, look, this is what I'm out to do. I'm going to help 3 people or even just one person. right? You'll find that it will really make a difference. And so that said, and then the IT pros, you said for yourself, it's not managing your time better. And I struggle with that too. About, I don't know, 6 months ago, our mutual friend, Zach, gave me this book called The One Thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I would highly recommend reading that book because that book really basically creates a mantra that says, you know, like if you constantly go through your day, and even if you're lousy at time management, which I'll put my hand up, I admit I'm not so great at time management. But if you can ask yourself the following question, what's the one thing that I can do right now, such that it would render everything else either inconsequential or obsolete, right? So what it does is it forces you to say, okay, of all the stuff that's on my plate that feels so overwhelming, what's the most important thing I should be working on right now? And just work on that and ignore everything else. Because everything else at that point is really just noise, right? It's not to say that it's not going to get done, but once you get that priority done and you focused on, and we've proven, I mean, that human beings are not good multitaskers. Kurt may argue with me on that because he likes to multitask, but I don't multitask well. And most people don't, you know? So when you stay and focus on one thing, boom, get it done. It's like all that other stuff is still going to be there, right?
So there's a couple of things, Shecky, as we head towards the top of the hour, because I want to address this. We have two other questions to get through, and I think this is a great segue. So one of the questions on here is, what's one or two skills you'd like to learn to become an entrepreneur? I think this is really good because we have a comment down here is to know your why. So a little bit different kind of opinion, maybe just a little bit difference of language. I'm going to go through this here just very, very quickly. I think this is an important attribute to have. So it's very interesting as an entrepreneur is people will say, really figure out your why. I kind of agree. I like to say, I want to figure out where I want to go and what I want to do. Now, if I figure out my why, let's just say, so I'm a little bit different than a lot of other people if they have family or kids, but I'm single. I like to travel the world. I like to go to complete exclusive masterminds and some weird, crazy places around the world to meet some amazing people. Like that's just part of the hobby and what I love to do. Now, to be able to finance that, I have to provide great service either in the agency or have great products and services as well too. So my why is really so I can learn and I can grow and I can travel. Now, if I only say learn, grow, and travel, it's not specific enough and the brain will never follow up because it's like, hey, someday I want to go to Hawaii, someday I want to go to Vegas. But if you don't know the roadmap on how to drive there, your brain will never equate with you ever being there. So what's important is to start laying out some of those next steps in the process for your creating your products, services, and message, right? Even just taking that small next step of joining the call next week is at least some type of momentum. Taking one step in front of the other is really important for momentum. And of course, the next thing is just never stop trying. Like that's probably one of the biggest ones, and Shecky knows this as well. But I want to tell you, this is, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze here for a second. One of the things is when people say, hey, all I want to do is be able to spend more time with my kids, my loved ones, and travel. It's not specific enough. You really have to focus on what's an obtainable financial goal that you can have for the year. Break it down in the quarter, break it down per month, so you can really have some obtainable goals. So at the time you look back, you're like, oh my goodness, I have no idea that I was able to accomplish this, but because I have these step-by-step goals, it's really important. Now, Shecky, one other point I want to make before I kind of move in to the other point of this, and kind of a conclusion to get to the top of the hour. Shecky, you made something about talking about vision that you gave me a compliment on that I appreciate. To be clear is I got to get better with my business partners. Again, being very transparent to say, hey, what is our exact financial goal for next year? I have an idea, but what's our exact financial goal? How do we break it down per quarter? How do we break it down per month? Right? But what I do know is that every decision that I make when Shecky and I work with each other for either, okay, how are we going to deliver content? We always want to make sure we deliver the best content to the avatar and our product, service, and message that we mentioned before, right? If I'm going to go on stage and speak, I want to make sure it aligns exactly with this. I know this sounds a little cheesy, but this is where I say it really goes along with my why. And think about it. Does your world encompass this? When I go for a bike ride, sometimes with Shecky and we're going out in rocky territory, I wear a helmet. I look like an idiot with a helmet, but it's the only way that I'm making money. And I think that this right here supports Nick's family, what Tom's doing, what Shecky's doing, lots of other families from my education. So I want to be more responsible. I want to be responsible because I want to continue on that message. Like, that's the way that I think about my why. I think about the family I get to spend time with, the people that I get to hang out with. Like, I want to be specific where I want to go. I want to be specific on my financial information. But I always think is everything that I do right now, this is probably one great question. We'll kind of wrap this up in here, Shecky. What you're working on right now, does it support what your goal, what you want to accomplish, or your product, service, or message in any way? So if you were playing Xbox and you're like, hey, this is a way for me to relieve stress for half an hour, great. Give yourself permission to hang out for a half an hour. But if you ask that question at 31 minutes and say, does this serve my purpose to these people of my product, service, and message? If it doesn't, stop the task immediately. And if you don't know how to stop the task immediately, Shecky, we will do this on a Periscope when you're over sometime this week. Pavlok, Pavlok. It's a client of ours. Shock yourself with on your wrist. It will change your habit if you need someone to help change for you. But I think the big difference between an entrepreneur and a wantrepreneur, especially when we're talking about goals and the why, is clearly operating every single day of their life. Is this advancing me, my product, service, and message for what I'm about to do? So I think that's super critically important. Shecky, one last thing. We talked kind of about the close of 2016. Actually, I'm going to let you state that last question. Then we're going to kind of wrap it up, tell everybody how it works, and then talk about our breakout session we're going to have this week.
Okay, here's the last question. I think this one's probably the most important one, is what would the close of your 2016 look like? In other words, a year from now, if you had a clear way to make your product, service, or message profitable. What would it look like? I'm just kind of curious for anybody that's on this call.
And I'll put a link into Pavlok so you guys can see what that is.
Yeah. So
you know,
just kind of curious.
One of the things is that I'll go over this real quick as people are typing this in here as well too. This is a good exercise, even if people are watching the recordings. Is Steve Jobs has said this on stage, and I mentioned this before. You never know where the dots in your life will lead until you look back to see how they're connected. Like, you just never, don't. And a lot of wantrepreneurs operate in, someday this will happen. Why doesn't good things happen? Someday I'm going to make this. Someday, you know what I'm going to do is, an entrepreneur says, okay, in the next 30 days, I'm just going to take this one step. And I remember Shecky and I went to a Tony Robbins event. Momentum occurs just by a millimeter, right? Just a little bit of movement, and a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit. And even to have goals, even to say, I'm going to get my ads set up this week, or I'm going to redefine who my avatar is. I'm going to make sure I have my landing page. Just taking these step by steps, these small little micro commitments. You'll hear us talk about more and more on these trainings. What we've really set up in the social media ad genius profit factory is, how do you either go from hero or zero, you don't know where to start, and know, okay, this next move, was that right? What are the benchmarks? What can you do to help me? Do you guys have any trainings around this? Can you introduce me to some of your expert friends? Is there any expert tools? Okay, this next part of my personal profit factory, your personal profit factory for your product, service, or idea. Okay, you're stuck on the follow-up. Great. What can we do to change that follow-up? Is it emails or retargeting ads? Here are the numbers around that. Who can we introduce you to that can help you with that as well too? Gone are the days that we want to hear people say, I really don't know. And I'll tell you one thing that breaks my heart, Shecky, this kind of rounds out this last question, is when I ask people, what do you want to do for 2016? And you've heard me say this before. I'm a firm believer you can have anything you want in life as long as you try and equate math to it, just a little bit. And I am horrible at math, by the way. I can't spell to save my life. Shecky knows that. This is all fifth grade math. But if you can predict how many leads will come in, those leads will typically buy this much. Each lead costs me this, but it's typically worth this in 30 days. You can plan your vacations. You can plan on buying a house. You can plan on buying a car. You can take more vacations. You can do whatever you want to do. But what makes me extremely frustrated as a teacher or a coach or a business owner is when I ask, what do you want to do for 2016? They're like, man, I have no idea. I'm like, okay, well, what would you like to do? Man, I'd love to buy a house this year. This year is going to be the year. Great. How are you going to do it? Kurt, I don't know. We have a product, service, and idea. You have our training on Facebook. Run some tests. See what happens, right? And with no one if you don't have a plan or you don't have a goal, you'll never be able to have a plan. And without a plan, you'll never be able to get there. With Social Media Ad Genius, we have the plan. With the Profit Factory, we're going to give you the plan. All you have to have is the product, service, and idea, and for you to do the work, and that's it. So, Shecky, let's talk about the plan for a second. What is going to happen this week for our breakout? What time is it? We'll give everybody the link. Talk about our breakout session.
Okay, so good segue. The breakout is obviously specific to this whole conversation about product, service, idea, or message, which is the first foundation of the big idea. I'm getting a little echo for myself. I don't know if you guys are getting that.
No, you're good.
Anyway, this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central, which would be 4 on the East Coast and 2 on the West Coast, will be recorded. We are going to do a much deeper dive into the meat of this subject. Today, I think blab is an interesting term because you and I just kind of get to blab about this stuff, and it's actually a fairly accurate term. But the breakout session that we're doing on this, entrepreneur versus wantrepreneur, and the whole deep dive into what does your product service message really need to look like in order for it to be viable. We're going to do a deeper dive into that on Wednesday. Will be recorded. And of course, if you are a member of Social Media Ad Genius family, then that recording will be in your back office forever. If you're not, it's only going to be there for, I guess it will. I don't know if we send a replay out, Kurt, but we do send out a replay to our list, but it will not, this real big foundational stuff is not going to be available for you after the replay is down. So, you'll get it for 3-4 days and then that's it.
Now, I know Nick's going to put it in a link. Remember, my Skype's down, so Shecky, you can put in the link in here for the
let me see if I can. Yeah, I think. Let me see if I can.
Quick little segue here then is we'll cut this part off. After we have the recording. So just to reframe on how this whole thing works, Shecky, if you can put the link in there, I'm just not finding it at all. Nick just put it in there, which is great. All right, so there you can go ahead and sign up for the webinar. You'll see the link at the right-hand side, and this will get you right on over to the breakout session that we're going to have for this week. So let me kind of re-explain how this whole thing works and wrap this whole thing up. So first of all, thank you very much for being here. Now, what we're doing as part of our content strategy, and we have other clients to do the same thing. Love for you to do the same thing. This is why we give you the content for free. So 1, we can record it. 2, you can implement it. 3, once it's all recorded, you guys started implementing, we can get some success stories and really go through. So the way that this works is every Sunday, we have a blog that comes out. You can go to blog.socialmediaadgenius.com. So, Shecky, if you don't mind typing that link out, blog.socialmediaadgenius.com. You can follow us there. We have lots of marketing insights, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. How do you advertise on social media? You can join us there, and you can opt in for a regular newsletter. We have a magazine that comes out every single week, which talks about all the top social media advertising trends we're finding from around the web that could be relevant for you. So every Sunday comes out a blog post. On Monday, Shecky and I are going to talk about it on a blab. You can come on here, ask questions, jump right onto the blab with us, right? And I'll get into the questions as soon as I answer this or go over this. Then what happens is from the content that we cover on the blab on Monday, either depending on Wednesday or Thursday, we're going to have a deep dive session where we're going to go in details and train on the specific subject. So, for example, for this week, for entrepreneur versus wantrepreneur, if you have a product, service, or idea, but you want additional clarification, join our breakout session. We're going to go through some bullet points to help you get some more clarity, get some ideas that this would be a product, service, or idea. Now, I also encourage people, if you already have a product, service, or idea that you're not consistently making $10,000 plus a month, that's just an easy barrier that I kind of like to think of. Join this and see if there's maybe a little bit of clarity you can get in our breakout sessions as well, too. So the blab and breakout sessions for the general public, all the recordings are always available free of charge until Saturday at midnight. Now, what ends up happening is we take all these recordings from the blab, from the breakout session, and we have step-by-step trainings that are inside the training of what we call social media ad genius. So I'll let you know just very, very, very quickly. Social Media Ad Genius is dedicated to show people how to market on Facebook and other sites as well, primarily Facebook for right now. Now, if you're already a member of Social Media Ad Genius, you're in the family, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys very, very much. From between now and the end of the year, we're running some specials. You'll find out more about that on the breakout session if you want to know more about the family as well, too. Justin will be happy to answer your question here in a second. But if you want to find out more about the family, join us on this breakout session on Wednesday. You can find out more there. Moral of the story, I'll tell you this. Our trainings have been sold all around the world. People from all around the world have used it. We've had hundreds of testimonials. I know people have made millions of dollars using our specific techniques for small businesses, large businesses, people who consult on marketing businesses. Lots of people have used our content. So if you're already a part of Social Media Ad Genius, be a part of the Insiders Club for $47. You'll get an email on it, or Nick can post a link here. I believe there's a call to action. Nick, you can post in here. So if you're a part of the Insiders Club for $47 a month, that's it. For $47 a month, you finance all the resources to make sure that we give you all the best up-to-date marketing advice. You're always going to get access to this blab. You're always going to get access to the breakout sessions. And when we come out and finish off Social Media Ad Genius Profit Factory, you're going to get that program included, again, $47 a month. That's something we're going to sell for a minimum of $997. So everything we're training on here, you're going to get the recordings for $47 a month if you're already in the family. So, and then you're not going to have to buy the other program or invest in the other program once we're done. You're just going to get it. It's what we like to say for our alpha program. Now, if you're not a part of Social Media Ad Genius, you want to know what this whole thing is, we have a link. I don't know. I can't see. I don't know if Nick's still here, Shecky, that we could send people to if they're a part of the family or if they want to join the part of the family. Our training itself can easily make you a couple $1,000s back in your own business. We used to sell lifetime memberships. We're going to stop doing lifetime memberships as of the first of the year. So if you're not a part of the family right now, it's $497. That's actually going to be a lifetime membership all the way up till December 31st. So you'll get all of our updates in Social Media Ad Genius for free. If you decide to go for $497, that's for lifelong. As long as we have the program, we're going to stop doing that December 31st. And like I said, by being a part of the Insiders Club at $47 a month, once you've purchased the training program, then you're going to get access to all of our updates and programs. Shecky, I'm not seeing the link coming through on here. I don't have Skype.
I'm looking for it right now.
Is Nick still online?
No, I've got it here.
He just put it up there. Great. Sorry, I was a little late on
got it.
Yeah. So other than that, we hold these to record, get your feedback as well too. This goes in the membership. But if you want access to all of the trainings that we've done, again, the Facebook training that's made other people millions of dollars. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can find all that information over on that order page. Again, this call is not about getting a ton of Social Media Ad Genius orders. It's to provide value, do a recap at the end. Shecky, is there any other recaps you want to go over? I have a couple of questions that I want to answer. I know we're going a little bit longer than an hour, but of course, we always want to provide great value for our avatar and the people that are finding out about us.
No, I'm excited for Wednesday. I mean, I think I just got done putting all the slides together, and so there's some really, really good stuff there, and really looking forward to it. And I would say that, if you feel through any of this conversation that you are an entrepreneur, but sometimes question that and sort of straddle that line, as I do sometimes, between entrepreneur and wantrepreneur, then come Wednesday, start getting your hands around this and start getting your hands dirty. It's okay. And, it's super, we're going to make it so easy for you because we're just going to go this one step this week, just one. Don't be overwhelmed. Just do that. And from a standpoint of the people that pitched in on this call, thank you so much for your insights and for being vulnerable enough to be honest with some of your answers. That's fantastic. And we're going to address all that stuff. And we're just going to say, hey, look, let's just do one step at a time and let's build this thing out. And let's, like Kurt says, I think that if you're even if you're not at the 10K a month, even if you're 1K a month, and to quote Kurt, look, let's just start getting you some base hits. Forget about the home run for now. Let's just start getting some base hits and start putting some things together to where you can create some repeatable, predictable income. And let's have some fun doing it because we like this stuff. And the family that we've put together is really just an amazing group of people. So if you're not already part of it, I would say, just jump in. The water's fine.
Yeah, I'll say this is one last part as we close it out. Again, you guys, check out the family if you're not a part of it. If nothing else, check out a breakout session. Or hey, you know what? If you're one of those skeptical people that I know I was when I was a very first entrepreneur, and you're like, I don't believe this, but I'll watch. I don't believe this. You can watch and trail along the recordings for the next couple of weeks if you want to. That's kind of the, hey, I'm going to stand by the sidelines and watch the game as it's being played, which is cool. But jumping into the game is even more amazing. And this last kind of part I'll close out with. This is kind of the part that Shecky knows that I try to balance myself out on. I try to explain this in the right way. I'll just say it and you guys can take it for what it's worth. So as many of you know, probably about 6 months ago, I moved into a new place that we now like to call Layer in the Sky. I love the city called Austin, Texas, because this is where I got my start online. This is the reason I'm talking to you. This is the reason that Shecky's here, that I'm working with Nick. And all I ever wanted to do is, as a kid from Nebraska that graduated in the bottom of my high school class, I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to live in a top floor. I wanted to overlook an amazing city. I wanted to live someplace where it was warm. And I wanted to have some type of online business. I just didn't know what the hell that is. So every single day I wake up, I see this sunrise above Austin that's just amazing. I walk out on this balcony that has this view that's just amazing. I get to work with people like Shecky right over here, Ashley that's right in back of me. I went to a gala last night where they raised $1.5 million for a children's hospital with some of the who's who in Austin, and it was great to raise money. And I'm like, oh my God, like Ashley hears me say this all the time. Like, people live here. Like, I have a bar on top of my residence. Like, it has one of the best views in the city, Shecky's seen. I'm like, oh my God, people live here. And I tell my friends, and I go, I say this not to brag, but this is a 5th grade math equation. Everyone should be able to do this. Everyone should be able to travel when they want, live in the house where they want. Like, it's a lot of times it's just small thinking. So sometimes my mom will even say, Kurt, you're so lucky. No, it's not luck. I work really, really, really hard, but I know a system that I've implemented, that I have dreams and aspirations. So every single morning I wake up like, oh my God, I can't believe people live here. Oh my God, I can't believe I live here. Oh my God, I can't believe I get to tell people how they could do the same thing. And then I go for a walk in the morning and I think about it. And then I think about, how can I serve more people? How can I refine my products and services? Notice I didn't say, by the way, and you'll figure this out once you really become from the Wantrepreneur to the entrepreneur, it's not about the amount of, it's about what you're able to do with it, how many people you're able to help. So as one kind of last closing story is, Shecky, I told you this story just a little bit, is I was with my mom this weekend, or this last weekend for Thanksgiving in Nebraska. And she had worked for the city government for a long time and has a little retirement. She's done well for herself. But it's always stay safe, secure, don't make any changes, because what happens if you don't have a job and it doesn't work out? So she never grew outside of this, which is fine. And I go, Mom, I got a question. I got a couple of questions. Number one, do you believe you can do anything you want to in this world? Go anywhere, live any place, anything. She goes, it depends. I'm like, no, it doesn't. So yes or no? She goes, yes. And I go, and that's why I love you. And I think I have the world's greatest mom, because I know that you were going to say yes and you believe in that. Now, some of my other family members don't believe it's possible. So they'll never even try. They'll never even think. They won't even attempt. And instead, they live their life in fear of what they're going to lose or what they don't have. And then they look at me and they say, you're so lucky. And I'm like, I've taught lots of other people how to do the same thing. So when I wake up every single morning, that's what I think about. How can I better serve? Because what's funny is the second question I asked my mom, and I go, it's not about the money, but I want you to understand, Mom, you had 3 kids. 2 of them have multiple 7-figure companies. The third one's going to have one this year. No one in her family has ever done it. And my mom's like, yeah, you guys make good money. And my youngest brother, the other one who's made over $1 million in a given year, he looks at my mom and he smiles and he goes, Mom, it's not about the money. It's what you told us, that we have the ability that we can. So that's why I want to share this with everybody too. This is why I get really passionate about it. So I just kind of want to wrap up with that. And Justin has a question in here, Shecky. You heard me say this a bunch, but I love talking about this. I'm like, this is why I do this. It's just because anybody else can do this exact same thing. And that's why I'm really excited, Shecky, over the next I want to say 20 weeks, but damn, that sounds like a long time. Just stay with us step by step. You'll see how this whole thing works out. So it's great. Justin, yes, I have. And does this show the approach to using online? So Justin, we actually have a webinar right now that you should check out. Check your email list. If you saw the webinar that we just did with Kevin Wilkie and Rob.
Yeah, so that was a good one.
Brilliant. Watch that webinar. I think they take down the replay as of tomorrow. That's perfect. If you send me an email, if you remember my email address, kurt@blackboxsocialmedia.com, send me an email. I'll send you those other links to those recordings that you're talking about. I have those, so you can still get access to it. Those recordings are also posted, I think, for a while we had the Google Plus group, and then plus we have the forum inside. But if you send me an email, Justin, I'll send you over those videos. And for you guys who don't know, I'll say real quick, so just because I teach Facebook advertising, I have access to some of the world's best in funnels, ads, people who track metrics, analytics, Google ads, Twitter ads, LinkedIn ads. I mean, from us doing this, I got some great contacts to some amazing people. Inside of our family, people will ask me questions from time to time. Kurt, how did you start your business? Well, I actually started selling my business, started selling services to small businesses. That's how we made our first couple $100,000 to do what we did now. Oh, Kurt, do you have links? Oh, because most of the stuff that I talk about, if someone asks me a question, I'll record a video so it's a part of the training. So I have videos on how to sell online marketing services to local businesses, even if you have no experience. I just did a webinar this week with some friends of mine that says, hey, if you're looking to fund that next product, service, or idea, here's how you can go online, find people who are already running Google ads, ask them a couple of questions, and then they will fulfill a third party, white label. We do the same thing. They'll fulfill the marketing for small businesses if you just make the introduction. So Nick and I made our first couple $100,000 by working with small businesses who all they wanted to do was focus on their small business and not their marketing. And we created a training program to show them how to do it. We did some services for them as well too. That's how we got our start. People had asked me that. I recorded a ton of videos. So this is like one example of being inside the family where like Justin will ask a question and I got tons of videos that have nothing to do with Facebook, but have everything to do about building a different type of business. Again, all for being in the family. So Justin, just write me Kurt, C-U-R-T @blackboxsocialmedia.com. And I was just looking at that email the other day. I'll dig that up and throw that out there as well too. So Shecky, cool. I know we went 20 minutes over. I love the content here, and we've had a ton of people show up. More and more people just join these. I love this. Shecky, sorry, one last thing before I close out. If you found this of value, give Shecky some props. These high fives or me. Share it on Facebook. It's the best compliment I can have. Or share it on Twitter. It's one of the best compliments that we can have as well too. People will be able to watch this recording or, again, watch the deep dive. That the links are in here. I'll repost as well, too. So you can either join us for the upcoming webinar that we have, or, of course, if you're not part of the family and you're interested in what the family is, you can always check us more about that as well. And then, of course, I'm going to give you the last thing is I'll give you a link to our blog articles. But, Shecky, anything else that you want to wrap up as I'm posting these last final links on here?
No, I'm just watching all the props and I'm looking at your numbers going well past 700. So
awesome.
I think that's a blab record.
No, trust me, there are people with 10,000 props on there. It's very interesting.
Well, neither one of us are that cute. So
yeah.
Anyway, appreciate you a lot. Looking forward to Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. So if nothing else, you guys, we'll see you on Wednesday. Remember, on Wednesday, we're going to do a deep dive into this. We'll also give you some tools and links, show you the tools that we use, introduce you to some of the people that we work with directly. But we're just really proud and honored. So at the end of the day, if you guys aren't using Blabs to connect with your audience, it's a great way to do so, especially webinars to reconnect. But you know what? We're going to teach you about the entire process. And we'll show you how a 7-figure business runs their business, the exact process all the way through. So join us, and I look forward to seeing you all on the breakout session. Make sure you register for the breakout session. I put it down below. Thanks, everybody.
See you Wednesday, everybody. Bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.